This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, don't forget to tune in to my Instagram Live from the PR Garage, PR Talk from the PR Garage. That's every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, I know that's at like 11 o'clock in the morning for our friends on the West Coast, but it's just 15 minutes every Thursday. I talk about what's on my mind at the moment, right? What's going on in the news, maybe a thought that I had that day about PR. We play a fun game that I like to call Why Is This News?, where I grab a story that has caught my eye and I sort of dissect it and try to translate why I think this made the newspaper or made TV in a way to kind of, educate all of us on why things get news coverage, because that's what we're all about here. So tune in every Thursday, Instagram Live at Jody Fisher. Follow me there and then hit me up when I hit that live button. That's every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Now on for our show today. Speaking of the West Coast, we got someone straight from LA. Linda Arroz is a public relations professional, speaker, and author focused on tech and lifestyle. She's a former TV personality and producer with more than 35 years of experience in working on both sides of the media. Arroz's strategy is to craft compelling stories. A former spot welder turned spokesmodel, Arroz is attracted to ideas, individuals, and information that excite and inform. Established in Los Angeles, the intersection of tech, lifestyle, and entertainment, Arroz likes to say she lives on the yellow brick road. Linda, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jody. This is a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah, I can tell you're fun already, but you got to take us from spot welder to spokesmodel to communications and PR professional. Can you help us out?
That's the yellow brick road. I found myself as a single mom. I'm from Flint, Michigan. Me and Michael Moore, or Michael Moore and me, to be grammatically correct. And I found myself in the 70s, late 70s, a single mom, and I needed a job. I didn't have any skills. I'd taken some community college classes, but I'm very young. And I took a path and went and got a blue collar job at a General Motors plant. It was the Chevrolet V8 engine plant. And I worked second shift from 5 at night till 5:30 in the morning, 6 days a week in the cylinder head department, building V8 cylinder heads, putting in the valve locks for the piston heads. And I can do the job still in my sleep. And it was grueling. It was physically demanding. It was noisy and dirty. And I was one of just a few women. And I was terrified. And on the first day, I realized I got to get out of here. And then eventually I got into trim. And one afternoon, again, working 11 and 12-hour shifts in the trim department, installing right rear shocks, I got a little restless, and to ease the tension, I got on the back of the moving truck of the vehicle, which had just come out of paint. So it was raw, painted metal, nothing inside. And I used my 15-inch long air hose, not ergonomically correct, use it as a microphone. And I jumped up and I mimicked some Saturday Night Live sketch or something I'd seen recently. And I went, and now live from Oklahoma City, it's another episode of your favorite game show and mine, GMAD, which was General Motors Assembly Division. And everybody clapped and laughed, and it reduced the tension and kind of set the tone, because it's hard work working in a factory on an assembly line. It's very, very hard work. However, over in the shadows was my general foreman scowling. Tension came back. I was terrified. Sure enough, next day, got a tap on my shoulder. Relief man said, "Yo, GM wants you." Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to get fired. Nods, puts me on the back of his scooter. We fly down And we go into this mysterious door, and there's every supervisor in the whole plant on the shift standing around with their nicotine-stained fingers and their styrofoam cup and their shirts that have been washed so many times they're gray, and they're grumbling and swearing. This turns out to be the daily quality control meeting, which is really a daily humiliation meeting because it's finding fault. But I was assigned the whiteboard. I guess the general foreman saw something in me. Thank you, General Foreman. And I was to keep track of all the statistics and keep the meeting going and shut down all the grumbling. Now, the unique synchronicity there is that I'd been taking some courses on and off, even with my demanding schedule, and I'd gotten roped into a Toastmasters group at the University of Oklahoma that had been reduced to, I don't know, 7 or 8 retired professors who met for pie and coffee once a month. And I got recruited into this group, and those retired professors took me under their wing, and they were guiding me into speaking and extemporaneous speaking. And every time you said word they honked a horn. And so I was in that mode, and I got into that room, and I kicked every one of those people's ass. And so I was able to get off the line every day for an hour, ride on the scooter, the pet, because of course everybody began to hate me quickly. But that brought me some attention, and very naive still at that point, not realizing what could become of this. I was reading a book called What Color Is Your Parachute by Richard Bowles or Bolus. Would love to meet this man. I think he's very elderly now. The book gets updated and republished every few years. I highly recommend it to anybody who is, coming off a COVID pivot or questioning what do I do next. And the book basically helps you evaluate likes, dislikes, skills, strengths, weaknesses, perfect work environment, etc. And it's a formula. Well, it's the mid-'80s. I'm in a college town in Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma. I'm a blue-collar worker. I'm in my 30s. I weigh 200 pounds. I'm going to be a spokesmodel. I'm going to have a job in fashion. I love fashion. My mother was a clothes horse. I want to help women feel good about themselves. I feel like shit. I'm wearing all these horrible clothes. I want to be glamorous. That's what I'm going to do. Through a series of trips to New York, because I've been familiar, I had taken a training program, image consulting, and this was a very new profession in the 80s that came out of the women returning into the workforce in the 70s. We had this mass movement of women post, second wave of feminism, women's rights, women coming to work. And so aside from pink collar jobs and teachers and secretaries and nurses, women didn't really work. They weren't supposed to work. So all of a sudden, women were in the workforce, but there wasn't a wardrobe or a coda of how women should appear. And of course, there was sexual harassment and all kinds of prejudice. And so image consulting evolved out of that to help women fit into a workplace dominated by males, and to sort of offset all of the chatter, and to provide confidence and to let them look the role they were playing. And I looked the part that day. I was color coordinated. I was wearing a face-shaped flattering neckline. I was wearing an eye-enhancing color above the waist. I had the perfect toe shape to elongate my torso and make me look 10 pounds thinner. Image consulting formulas. And there were 2 men in the shop, and they came over and they said, "Oh, you're well attired," or something. "Wow, you look really great. Where'd you get that top? Da da da. Can I ask you a few questions?" And it turned out they were scouts by a major brand, the Spiegel catalog. And of course I looked great because I had this image consulting formula in my head. And I was about a size 14, 16 at the time, and in my 30s, but I still weighed 200 pounds. And they said, "Wow, Spiegel catalog is launching a new program for plus size women. There's nothing like it out there in the marketplace. Women need clothes," which was true. And they said, "Please send in your portfolio." Interestingly enough, as luck would have it, a friend had moved also to LA, and she introduced me to Richard Simmons, and he invited me to give some pep talks at his Slimmons studio in Beverly Hills. And he wrote me the most beautiful thank you note, which I still have. Thank you, Richard. And I put that in there with this picture of Richard and myself, Richard in his great gregarious smile, has a t-shirt that says "Go to Hell." And I'm wearing a very form-fitting bodysuit with a bikini panty, and I'm big but voluptuous, right? So I threw that in there. Well, guess what? They called. They flew me to Chicago, never knowing I was still working second shift as a spot welder because I had been taking leaves, vacations, sick leave, educational leave, anything I could get my hands on. And they flew me to Chicago and we started talking, and they had me talk to their executives. And the next thing you know, they offered me a 3-year contract. And in 1989, I signed a contract with Spiegel Catalog, and I was the first plus size model to have a contract with a major brand. And I've been an activist and proactive for size acceptance, body diversity, self-esteem, look and feel good ever since. And so that's it. I was able to get off the assembly line. So at the age of 35, straight out of Compton, straight out of Norman, Oklahoma, I became a national spokesmodel with an apartment in New York and an apartment in Long Beach, California, and my son was happy. And I've never looked back because one thing led to another. My skills and strengths that I had identified via What Color Is Your Parachute was my launching pad. So that's
that is an
long answer.
It's an amazing journey. No, not at all. That's an amazing journey. Now, how does that then get you to the place where you become a TV producer and a communicator and getting into the world of journalism?
This is the brilliant part. As a spokesmodel with a major brand, they gave me media training, and they sent me out. And I was on 2 or 3 TV shows every week. I was on a constant plane. I was meeting with journalists, and I traveled with a big trunk of clothes. And so as a result, I learned how to become a stylist because I'd be on the road and I'd have these 3 women, these models, and I'd have my trunk of clothes and my bag of tricks, and I'd put the clothes together. And on a slow day or a slow week where there weren't any bookings, I was told to report to the PR agency in New York City run by Jody Donahue, a major doyen at that time, a no nonsense woman on her hips. But those women taught me how to craft a story, the story behind the story, how to tell a story. And most of the women that worked there were really rich divorcees with what we call the $1 million Rolodex. We don't have a Rolodex anymore. That's one of those outdated terms, but we had, an address book. And so at the feet of these women, as they created the stories around Spiegel and clothing trends and size acceptance or anything else they could think of, I was there soaking it up. And then because I was on live news, mostly live morning and noon news shows, I saw production. I worked with TV producers because before the show in the green room, they come in, they go over the beats and the talking points, and they want to see what you're going to say. So in 3 years, I learned how to be a public relations executive. I learned how to produce live television segments or produce anything. I learned how to tell a story well and how to get those plugs in, regardless of a talkative show host. And I learned how to be a stylist. And those skills, and I was armed and dangerous with my business training from General Motors. I was armed and dangerous.
Man, talk about on-the-job training. I mean, you took advantage of the opportunity and turned it into other opportunities, it sounds like to me, right?
Well, I was in the moment. It was all happening so fast. I mean, it was heady. These were heady times, everyone. We're talking, the late 80s, the early 90s. Wall Street is cranking up designer fashion, designer jeans. There's all this hoopla. Money was flowing. And I was in it, and I wasn't even realizing that I was learning. I was just observing, but I just picked it up. It's years later after somebody like you asked me, how did you do that? Or how did that come about? I started putting it in perspective. And that kind of gave me my log line. I put the past in perspective to predict the future. because if this, then that, and that's part of the way I work. So that's how I learned all these things. And then over time, one thing led to another. When my contract was up, I had met a lot of people in the green room, and I was asked to apply for a job as a fashion editor at a magazine in Beverly Hills called Big Beautiful Woman, BBW. It was the only fashion publication at the time aimed at a woman who wore a larger size. And again, this wasn't always well received. I mean, I will say with just complete neutrality that in the world of political correctness that we've evolved to, and it's a good place, the last bastion of racism is fat. You can make fun of a fat person, you can say terrible things to a woman, a person of size, but no other ethnicity, no other race, no other individual or job can we do this. And Bill Maher is the perfect example of that. But I'm not bitter. I'm not. I'm just kind of putting in a perspective that if I were, as a fashion editor, were to go to an ad agency with our publisher and they wanted to show our editorial calendar and the beautiful fashion layouts, the agency would take the meeting, but then they would insult us and tell us that this was not their cut. We're still at a statistic where almost half of the American female population is a size 14, 16. Everybody's mother, cousin, aunt, neighbor, we all know someone who's plump or plus size. We can skirt all around those polite words. But if you're in a meeting with the ad agency for skin lotion or moisturizing lotion or something like that, my retort at the time was, seriously, you don't want to advertise and cultivate a woman who's going to use twice as much of your product because her body's twice as large? But no, that wasn't the thing. But anyway, I had a lot of fun and learned a lot as a magazine editor, and then became the editor-in-chief, and then launched another publication called Maternity, Fashion, and Beauty, because all the celebrities were adopting children, having children later in life. And I joked, it's the same 39-inch waist, right? The pregnant belly and the plus size belly. I thought, oh, I can do this. And interestingly enough, maternity clothes had disappeared from retail. You could barely find a smock in JCPenney, but they're just, so again, women in the workplace, nothing to wear. And in fact, in 1992, there were no Black nursing bras at all. And the manufacturers and the multiple line reps on 7th Avenue said, there's no market for it. We can't afford to keep fabric in inventory. I said, well, we're going to change that. And we did. And then all of a sudden, there were a lot of stores that opened up, like Pea in the Pod is one example of a luxury chain targeting women who were professionals in the workforce. So I had a lot of experience with that. And then an advertiser recruited me, and I became the marketing director for a very large multi-million-dollar department store designer, Carol Little, who designed her own fabrics. And we were in every retail major department at Bloomingdale's and Saks Fifth Avenue and all these top stores. And I would travel around the country. Now, mind you, all of this that I'm telling you, I was still on television every week. I was still being interviewed by journalists. This is a big topic. First of all, women want to get dressed. They want to feel good. They want to we want to feel good about ourselves. I mean, in the old days, I would say, we just want to feel pretty. Now, I'm not so sure that we want to look right. We want to feel right about ourselves in the skin that we're in and the identity, that we identify with. And so again, I was just continuing to hold my skills and tell these stories and do makeovers. And I look back on it, I think I've done over 400 daytime television makeovers where I've made over just every kind of woman you can imagine, every size, every shape, every color. And it was my pride to include a petite, a plus, a tall. In daytime television, they have sweeps. With streaming, you don't hear so much about that anymore, but they would have tantalizing headlines that we call clickbait now. So I would come up with things like surgery-free breast makeovers. And then, of course, that, and so the voiceover artist in the commercials would be luring people to watch on Tuesday. And then there I would be, and I'd have a woman who'd had a double radical mastectomy and a college student who'd gained the college 15 and was bursting out, and someone who felt very small, and someone who was wearing a double D. And I would find all the solutions and share this information, and very well received, by the way. Again, early days of the internet. So again, television was still a main source of news. And then, I got laid off in 1995. There was some, I don't know, financial retail debacle. Like every decade, there's some horrible thing. And I found myself trying to figure out what to do. And I was interviewing for corporate positions in an era where there were still dress codes, like pantyhose. No. And it took a year, but I repackaged myself because then I knew what a portfolio was and I had stuff to put in it. And I made several portfolios and I went out and shot myself as a stylist. And so I worked for quite a few years as a Hollywood stylist. I did over 150 commercials for Honda, AT&T, a lot of bookstores, just, Sprint, a lot of fun things, really hard work. But again, utilizing all this information that I learned with my 3 years with Spiegel. And then I was invited to New York one year to do something. And I'd hired a public relations person, and she got me into what at the time was called desk size, where you go around and they make these 10 to 15-minute appointments and you meet with all these wonderful editors in the Condé Nast building and the Hearst. And it's so glamorous. It's really like Sex in the City. It's really like that. And she did such a great job, and we had so much fun on that trip. I said, I want to start a PR firm. Then I can be my own client. I won't have to pay you. You'll be a partner. Let's be partners. And so she agreed, and we did that. And hence Makeover Media was formed. And we had a great run of working in luxury lifestyle and then tech. My early clients were VC funded tech startups in the realm of beauty and lifestyle. And they were brilliant. These people were brilliant geniuses all the way back to 1998 and 99. The visionaries that I was working with, they already had 3D innovation platform training for the internet. They already had click to shop concepts. We didn't have high-speed access. And so they burned through all the VC startup money because in industry terms, we called it the fat pipe. By that time, we had saturation of internet in homes, mostly dial-up, but most people had access to the internet at work. So we didn't have the speed to deploy these video and 3D, high bandwidth concentration things. And then 2005, YouTube launched. And by 2005, we had, 78% saturation of high-speed access. And that's when the world we know it took off. And I've been deep in it all these years.
A theme of what I'm hearing you talk about is not only seizing opportunity, but being able to tell a story and communicate that story effectively, regardless of the industry that you're in. Talk to me a little bit about communication skills that you've honed over the years and the art of telling a story.
The art of telling a story requires editing. Get it all out, write everything down. I use mirror work to practice things. This is a method that actors use and public speakers use. You want to hear how it flows. When we write to be read, but when we need to write something that is spoken, it's different. And we have to think through those things. And we need to understand the quick beats of a story, because people have very short attention spans and they're getting shorter and shorter. And so when I'm planning something or writing something or preparing something to speak, I get it all out. And then I cut, edit, extra words, too much time spent on one thing. And I try to get as concise as possible. And in the days of a non-premium X platform, formerly known as Twitter, I'll throw that in, we were confined to character count. And I think that was one of the best training in the world, because you can write a press release, and the art of writing a press release, which is still very important because it's a fact sheet. And if you can get all the beats and all the important things about the client or the story that you're telling in there in a succinct manner, in prose, not boring, monotonous stuff. But I mean, not everything has to be a Pulitzer Prize winning novel, but the art of storytelling is to use engaging words, descriptive words, or to use your voice in a manner like I'm using it now, where you're not talking in a monotone. In a lot of younger generations, we've got this bad habit of going in terminal uptick, and then you go like this and like that. And frequently the words are sprinkled with and like he said, and like I go, and I'm all in, I like, and I go. And these have infiltrated dialogue to the point where we aren't even saying much. Now, these aren't criticisms. This is just the observation of the evolution of language. And it's my goal to keep the language rich with words. I love words. There's so many beautiful words. And the most vulgar word in the American language right now is suck. That sucks. Well, okay, but there's so many other descriptive words. I despise the word hate. I hate that. People, they let it roll off their tongue. They don't even know what they're saying. First of all, they're sending a lot of negative energy out into the universe. But what about the word loathe, despise, abhor? These are so rich and they feel so good in the mouth. Yeah. So the art of storytelling is about being concise and being able to edit, really having the courage and the awareness that you don't need 1,000 words to tell something. You can tell it very quickly.
When you were a TV producer, what were you looking for in that storytelling angle? Was it a story? Was it a combination of factors like, okay, we need the visual, we need the story, we need the people? Are you ticking boxes? What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it, Jody. You're ticking boxes. Yes, you need something visual, which can be the expert itself, but you want a takeaway. The audience must come away from this 4 to 6 minute segment with something good, some piece of information. Maybe it's a great book to read. Maybe it's something on sale. Maybe it's some hot new trend or some service or product that's going to save new moms. Something, a takeaway. You want takeaways from the audience, and you want to give good information, and you want a guest who is eloquent. I was asked to be on Good Morning America, and it was multiple phone interviews. This was 1993 or 4. Again, pre-internet, no Zoom, no visuals, so it was all long distance phone calls, and where they would just grill me and throw all, like you said in your pre-interview, rapid fire questions to see, if they could stump me, or if I was going to stutter or fall apart and, be staring in the camera like a deer in the headlights. And you go through these interviews with several of the producers until they say, yeah, okay, she's good enough to be on our show. And so that's, again, you learn what they're looking for. They want someone that presents, that speaks, that can get the beats and the plug in. When you're being paid as a spokesperson, or you're someone representing a product or brand, you've got to get that plug in. And frequently a show host is talking over you, and they're just taking up your time. And I'm telling you, 4 minutes goes by like that. And you've got to be able to wrangle. You've got to be good enough to wrangle the host politely without it looking like you're being rude. And you've got to be able to interrupt well enough so that you can take the spotlight back and say what needs to be said. And that is a real art form. My first television appearance with the Spiegel catalog was live in St. Louis. And the host was talk, 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 talk. And she was talking about me, though. She was being very, wow, you're so beautiful. And I can't believe you weigh 200 pounds. And, this outfit. And I'd wear that. She was a thin woman, but I'd wear that. Well, the 4 minutes went by and I never said the word Spiegel. So, that was
Yeah, that's what I
that was
frequently
great.
tell clients too, is to not wait. An interview is not an interrogation. You're not there to wait for the perfect question, right? You're there to deliver the message you've been tasked with delivering. So don't wait to say the thing you want to say. Don't wait for the question you're hoping to get, because it's likely to never come, or come in the
Well,
form that you expect it to come in.
that's called burying the lead, as you know. Don't delay the best part of the news. I mean, you can build up to it, but get to it right away. Get to the point. And that's with anything. The pitch, the writing, the speaking, make the statement.
What's your favorite? Let's we're gonna finish up our conversation here with this question. What is your favorite news format right now? Is it TV, radio, online, print? What's the medium that you like working in the most?
I subscribe to Apple News. A lot of people don't even know that little red and white striped box on their iPhone is a news app. You can pay, and there's a lot of news. You go in there, there's tons of headlines. Apple News has over 350 newspapers and periodicals from all over on every topic. And for $9.99 a month, you have access to all of it. So I can read popular, I love Popular Mechanics because they're so focused on tech. I can read the Wall Street Journal. I can read the New Yorker. I can read Architectural Digest. I can read the Los Angeles Times. I can read everything, TMZ. I can get, and you can search and you can put in things so that you can create filters so that you start to see things that you're looking for. It is so wonderful. I haven't watched a, a network news program at probably 15 years or more. I'm untethered, and I, I do watch a lot of streaming and subscribe to some of the channel apps, but my news comes primarily from Apple News, and that's how I start my day. I spend an hour looking at all the headlines.
Yeah, it's a great aggregator. I think a lot of people don't know about the magazine function of it. You can get all those magazines for
Why
like
would I subscribe? Well,
nothing.
first of all, for the
Amazing.
sake of paper and recycling,
Sure.
and the magazines are beautiful. Who doesn't love looking through a beautiful, glossy publication? But honestly, by the time that print magazine arrives at your door, the news has been out there for a month because
Yeah.
magazines work 3 to 6 months in advance. And so I don't need all that recycling and clutter. And I want to be in the moment. I want to know the most current things that are happening because I need to be on top of it to educate clients, keep them abreast, send them articles they need to read. I need to be conversant in certain things.
Yeah. It's a great lesson in keeping current. Linda, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. We're going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio, ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. I think we're going to get one out of you, Linda. Rapid fire question number one for you. What is your favorite news source?
Okay, so that was Apple News, but then I'm on X. Yes, I have an Instagram profile and Facebook, and I used to be very, very active on those, and I will again. But right now, X is so exciting, and I know it's controversial, but at least some people think it's controversial. X is a dialogue, it's a conversation. I'm not commenting on your pretty picture on Instagram, which I love, or your family, or an announcement on Facebook. On X, I can get right to the individual. When Michael Moore had his film festival in Traverse City with the theater he restored, I wrote to Michael and we had a conversation. When I can talk to journalists, I can talk to tech experts. The posts are conversations. And that is the difference between commenting and liking on several of the apps. And there's real exchange. So and I learn a lot on that platform because it's fast.
All right, so then I think we already know the answer to rapid fire question number two, which is, what is your favorite social media platform?
Yeah, it's X. It's X. And I have premium. It's $8 a month, and I'll tell you, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You can get into long form journalism is alive and well on X. You can write articles. You can get a lot of attention, and I I get a lot of media placements as a result of these conversations that I have with journalists and writers.
Yeah, it's a great place to pitch done correctly. It sounds like
That's
you
right.
do.
That's right.
Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
I brew at home. I do Starbucks Pikes Peak, and I eat it. And I'll confess, I either use sugar-free coffee, make French vanilla, or the Italian syrup Torani. They have hazelnut, chocolate. They have French vanilla. All these wonderful things. So every morning, I can have a designer cup of coffee for 50 cents.
It sounds like the right approach to me. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
Hard-boiled eggs. I can take one. They're protein. They're high protein. They'll keep in the fridge for a few days. If I have to dash out the door, I'm going to be stuck in traffic, because it can take 20 minutes to go 2 miles some afternoons here. I've got a little something with me all the time. It's discreet. It's finger food. It normally doesn't smell, and it doesn't make a mess.
That's all right. And very overlooked, I would say, too. Rapid fire question number 5, Linda. What do you want to be after you finish this career? You've already had so many in your life, but what's coming next?
What's interesting, just to answer that very quickly, is that I think I'm doing the same thing I've always done. I develop, package, pitch, produce, launch, write, and speak using communication skills and my curiosity. But I'm working on my memoir. It's called Car Sick, the story of an auto worker. And I crashed my drone when I went down to the LA graffiti towers a few weeks ago. And in that moment, like a life-death experience, I thought, there's a story here. This is an LA story. Nothing's been done on this scale. And I'm developing a documentary called Ghosted, the story of a skyscraper graffiti bomb. So I'm easing into a different vehicle. In other words, I'm telling a story, but I'm doing a different format. And I belong to Greenlight Women, and I've got a lot of support from established filmmakers to help me with this development, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, man, that sounds so exciting. We'll definitely watch for that. Linda, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for spending this time with us. Please let people know how they can find you online.
They can find me at Linda Arroz, which is LindaArroz. So just think my name means pretty rice in Spanish. Arroz con pollo. I'm on every menu. Linda Arroz. So that's Twitter, X, Facebook, and Instagram. And that is my website. Or you can also find me at makeovermedia.com.
Fantastic, Linda. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.